I don't think we are effective by coming off self-righteous and sitting in judgment. Jesus himself was called a friend of sinners. They didn't understand that he was just there demonstrating the nature of God in those relationships.
Welcome to this week's edition of First Person. I'm Wayne Shepherd. Our guest is Terry Botwick, the producer of the new film out this week titled Captive. We'll get to the conversation in a moment. One of the reasons I love bringing you these interviews each week is because the stories they tell of God's faithfulness as He calls and leads people in accomplishing something of value for the kingdom of God are significant. Someone who partners with us in bringing these stories to you is the Far East Broadcasting Company, because they also believe in the power of story to bring a gospel transformation to people's lives. FEBC does that in 100 countries of the world, and First Person does it here at home. For more about FEBC and its local language broadcast, please visit the link at firstpersoninterview.com. Well, a movie being released this weekend is Captive, based on a miraculous true story that drew the attention of the entire nation, a drama about the collision of two broken lives. The producer of Captive is Terry Botwick, who joins us now on First Person and begins by telling us his own story.
I grew up in New Jersey, in a conservative Jewish home in New Jersey. Hollywood, was as far away from me as the other ocean. But I always loved television. I always loved movies. And, as an angry young teenager, frankly, I came out to Los Angeles because it was as far as I could go before I bumped into the ocean. And, but I also had, been searching spiritually through those years as well. And in 1975, I had a number of supernatural experiences, but that led to an encounter with Jesus in 1975. And so as a young Jewish man at that point, came to realize that Jesus was not only Israel's Messiah, my Messiah, Son of God, and that radically changed my life. I spent a couple of years in full-time ministry before the Lord leading me into entertainment full-time. And I think it's given me a different perspective, really, on how to integrate our faith into the work that we do, the work that I do. Because being Jewish, I'm not sort of steeped in the church culture. I don't come at it from, growing up in that culture. And so, I'm really honestly looking for what is the authentic experience with God in the places that we all wrestle as human beings, and how do I communicate that through story? I think the two fundamental questions for every person is, in thinking about God, it's God, who are you? And Abraham wrestling when God's going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. Would you do that if there are 10 good people there? I mean, who are you? Mm. Job wrestling with the nature of God. So I think question number one is, who are you, God? And how can these things be going on in the world, in my life, if you're there? Who are you? And the second thing is, who am I? And Rick Warren's book, Purpose-Driven Life, who am I? What did you make me to be? What did you make me to do? And so I think, we all wrestle with those questions, and I think they're fundamental to everybody. And I think story is a great vehicle to confront what our core beliefs may be.
Mm-hmm. And we've seen how story, and Christian stories, if you want to call it that, have really been accepted, and you found some acceptance in Hollywood, which is amazing.
Well, it's been a long time coming. It used to be people who had a faith had to be very subversive in that. You literally would fear for your job. It's because it's not really about proselytizing. We have to live our lives, work alongside people with integrity, and kind of the St. Francis thing. It's preach the gospel at all times, and when necessary, use words. And so, and like Jesus, and Wayne, it's where without casting any stones in anybody else's direction, it's where I think we're missing it sometimes with how we as Christians are working in media and in film and television. So much so we're coming from a place of morality and trying to control, the content, that people are focused on the absence of certain things, in the content in order for it to be acceptable. And I think we're confusing wholesome and biblical. And, the Bible's not a wholesome book, but it is a true book and an authentic book. And it actually causes us to wrestle through some very challenging things. And there's, very dark things in the Bible as well. And so I don't think we are effective by coming off self-righteous and sitting in judgment. Jesus himself was called a friend of sinners. They called him a glutton. They didn't understand that he was just there loving people, identifying with those people, and demonstrating the nature of God in those relationships.
Which is why a story, and we'll get to Captive in a few minutes, but it's why a story like that, so personal, touches hearts so deeply. It's not about the big picture. It's about a person, about people.
It is, and God is about relationship. And first relationship with Him, and then how we relate to other people. And that is not. We're not going to legislate with a bunch of rules and regulations how to relate to God or how to relate to one another. Our morality, our behavior, in my opinion, is downstream from our beliefs and from how our beliefs work themselves out relationally. And so I think, story is very effective at causing us to ask deep questions. And I don't think we have to defend God. He can take care of himself, and pastors do a very good job of dealing with doctrine and answering questions in the pulpit. I think story should be about the questions.
Well, Terry, as I've researched your career online, I've noted that there are no shortcuts, are there? You really have to earn your way, and you've done that. Talk about the various roles you've had and the things that you've done to get to where you are now.
Well, I'd love to tell the world that I had such great foresight, but I'm not sure I did. I was fortunate to have a number of opportunities, and God lead me into a number of opportunities. And quite honestly, some things on my resume look great on a resume, but they're not necessarily great in terms of where I was in trying to follow God in that moment. But I have had the opportunity to experience the entertainment industry hands-on in a number of different ways. So, I got started early on when the cable industry was very young, probably in 25% of the country. And I went to work for what was then called CBN Cable Network that we turned into the Family Channel, and was able to run programming and production there when we started to do original production. And, that gave me an opportunity to do hundreds and hundreds of hours of original content, and also, to have to raise money for it around the world because we were a small network. We could only afford so much, and I had to find other co-financiers, co-producers to complement our money to get this content to happen. So, that gave me great exposure, not only in how to create the content and how to produce the content, but how to get it funded, what the legal issues were around it. So it became a great education as I was executing that work. And when I left there, I went to run the Hearst Corporation's entertainment division and distribution company. So we had a production company that did 12 or 14 television movies a year, plus a TV series and animation. And we distributed our TV product around the world. So that distribution company also reported to me. And, I won't go through every item of my resume, but I had the opportunity to work at CBS for about 4 years as a senior executive there, which was a wonderful time. And it was shortly after Les Moonves got to the network, and he's done such an incredible job, in building that company. But in those first years, there was a lot of rebuilding to do and a lot of educating people. I had worked in the cable industry. I was deeply in tune with the challenges and the competitive challenges of being in a multi-channel universe. And the bigger broadcast networks hadn't really felt the pain of that yet. And, there were very old institutionalized things as part of the company that it was fun to reinvent and to help bring the company. A lot of
change was in the air, wasn't it? Yeah.
A lot of changes in bringing the network from fourth to first place. But after that, I went to run the company that does the VeggieTales videos for a couple of years, and we did that first movie, the Jonah movie.
Yeah, I remember it well. Thank you so much for Jonah the movie.
Well, with anything I've done, all the various things I've had the good fortune to do in my career, in most instances, when I tell people I was associated with VeggieTales, that's people love me for Bob and Larry more than anything else. And I wasn't the creator, but I did get to participate and run that company for a couple of years. I remember you're in Chicago. I remember walking through the O'Hare Airport more than once with a Bob and Larry jacket on and being swarmed like I was one of the Beatles. It was fantastic.
We'll continue to talk with producer Terry Botwick. We'll hear about his movie Captive coming up on First Person. Last year, the Far East Broadcasting Company received over 2 million responses to its broadcasts, reaching people throughout Asia and beyond. And the stories they tell of lives changed by the gospel and the new hope and purpose they have found in Christ is outstanding. When you visit firstpersoninterview.com, be sure to click on the FEBC banner. Find out about the daily devotional, How Shall They Hear?, telling many of these stories. That's the FEBC banner at firstpersoninterview.com. My guest today is Hollywood producer Terry Botwick, and Terry's latest effort is a movie called Captive, which just comes out now, as a matter of fact, this very weekend. And Terry, I have yet to see the whole movie, although I was invited to the screening. I wasn't able to attend, unfortunately, but I have seen the trailer and I've read about the movie. I tell you, it sounds gripping. It really does.
Well, thank you. We've been getting fantastic response. It's, it begins with having a compelling story that is true. We did everything we could in our work to make the story authentic to Ashley Smith's experience. And it's not an easy story. She was a single mom, a widow, meth addict who had lost custody of her daughter because of her drug addiction. And she was taken hostage for 7 hours by Brian Nichols after he had escaped from the county courthouse where he was on trial, killed the judge, killed a court reporter, a detective, and later a fourth person before taking Ashley hostage. So it's a gritty story. It is PG-13. It's tasteful, but it is a gritty story, and we told it authentically. In fact, one of the greatest compliments was the first time Ashley got to see the movie, and she really said it was authentic to her experience, and we're very proud of that.
Wow. Yeah, we all remember that story. It's been a few years ago now, but who could forget that story that took place there in Atlanta? It was a drama that the entire nation was engrossed in, and we were praying for that young woman, and Rick Warren's book, The Purpose-Driven Life, plays a major role in this movie, doesn't it?
It does. Ashley had been recently back to church. She'd been given a copy of the book. She'd been reading it for about a month, and she was able to, in that harrowing experience throughout the night, read to Brian Nichols. And I won't give away what happens in the movie, but I will say that God used that dramatically in both of their lives. And I have to add real quickly that it is well worth everyone's experience to see the movie, not just because I think it's a edge of your seat, wonderfully, put together movie. As the producer, it's probably a little self-serving to say that, but the two actors, the lead actors, David Oyelowo, who is also a strong Christian man, and Kate Mara, are two of the finest actors anywhere, and their performances in this movie are outstanding.
Yeah. Well, again, watching the trailer, I can tell that. Tell me more about David Oyelowo. He's Nigerian, is that right?
He's Nigerian and then brought up in the UK. So he is he's got this wonderful British accent, which makes him sound about 40% smarter than me, and which he may be.
He may be,
but
right.
But David has got a strong personal faith. He came to having grown up in a Christian home, but came to his own strong faith when he was 16 years old, and feels a call of God on his life to be doing what he's doing in Hollywood. And of course, people that saw him as Martin Luther King in Selma know what a fine actor he is.
Yeah. I wanted to mention that. He plays Dr. King in Selma, and I remember him from the Lincoln movie that was so popular back, 3-4 years ago now, as he played a character there in that movie. I remember his scene with Abraham Lincoln, very powerful, and he's quite an actor.
He is, and of course, he was also in The Help and in The Butler, and he's a very talented and smart guy. He picks good roles for himself, and he's a standout. He's become a real movie star, and that works well in the timing of our film. Tell me more of the backstory making this movie. People don't understand how long it takes to develop a movie like this when it comes to all the script writing and financing and production and release and distribution. Talk about some of the backstory. Sure. It's probably, now that the movie is releasing, it's probably about 8 years or so of working on this film. And, there are others who had acquired the rights, shortly after the incident in Atlanta. So for them, it's even a little bit longer. But, it's very challenging to get a movie made, even in the studio system, but we made this independently, which means you have to develop the script. You've got to have a director that you can trust. You've got to have actors that get people excited, and you've got to somehow go out there and raise the money. And, all of that is very challenging. And, I think the film is very well written. I think it's very well acted. And, if you don't have a good script, it's hard to get things done because it all starts there. Right. Tell me about the director. Well, Jerry Jameson is a very fine director. He's an older gentleman, and that's comforting because, it's not his first rodeo. He made 7 or so feature films back in the 70s, but he's also made around 50 television movies and done a lot of episodic television. So in addition to being a talented man, he brought, years of experience and skills. So when you're making a movie, there are times where you just have to make changes. You have to adjust to weather. You have to adjust to schedule, locations, what it takes to get it done on the schedule. And so it was very helpful to have someone that, has done it so many times. He was pragmatic and able to, with me, make the decisions that had to be made quickly. And I think the film is very well directed. It looks beautiful. There's a tremendous use of close-ups. And as people go see the movie, look for the way that mirrors and reflection are used throughout the movie. It's really, really, really brilliant as it adds to the subtext of the movie. All right, that's a good tip as we see the movie, which is being released right now, called Captive. Terry, more about the production process. It's a long one. People, I don't think, understand that. It is a long process to make a movie. Once you've got it funded, you spend, a couple of months preparing the actual production of the film. And then, in our case, it was a 22-day schedule, which is on the short side. Films very short, right? A larger film with much bigger budget can, you can be shooting for a much, much longer time than that. And then, the post-production process is also long. You'll spend, 20 weeks or 24 weeks or so editing the movie and working on, sound elements and music and all those things. So what brings you the most joy from producing a movie like Captive? Well, that's a really interesting question. I would say the thing that brings me the most joy is seeing other people react to the movie, watching other people react to the movie, feeling like we have told the story in a truthful way, and seeing how people process that. And in this case, there was an added element, which is we were telling the story of an actual person's life, and so there was a great responsibility to do that well and to do that truthfully as well. So I'd say those are the things that really make me feel like we've accomplished something.
Terry, we occasionally talk about movies on first person, not a lot though, but I know it's very important for a movie that you've poured your heart and soul into like this to be accepted right out of the box, so to speak, right on this opening weekend. We're there right now. What needs to happen for this movie to be a success?
Well, first of all, what you're doing helps a lot, for people to give us a platform to inform people that this is not only an experience that they should have in a movie theater that's well worth spending the time, but it's also an experience that helps them have a dialogue about some important things in life, that we can glean and that we can begin to discuss as a result of Ashley's experience with Brian Nichols. And so I think it takes on some importance, but opening weekend is critical. It's where the momentum is built. It's where decisions will be made about, what to do the next week and the week after that in how the movie is supported and how long it will stay in theaters. Opening weekend is probably the most important thing in the life of a movie. And so I really appreciate this opportunity to speak to your audience and to encourage people to come and support the movie, enjoy the movie, tell your friends, get on social media. If you like the trailer, if you like these actors, if you've seen and liked the movie, please help us be there opening weekend.
I can remember a time, Terry, when we were lamenting the lack of good, solid, if you will, Christian stories in moral stories in movie making. And now they're out there, and now that they are, we need to support them, I think.
Well, we do, and I would say, for me, we didn't make this for the church. The Christian person should embrace this story because there's an organic faith element to it. But we made this as a general movie, and I think as people of faith, it's what we want to do. We want to engage the culture with stories that give us an opportunity to have that water cooler or coffee conversation afterwards with people about the things of life. And that's what story has done throughout the centuries. Even when a story, may have things in it that are tough for you, if thematically it's important, I would encourage believers, go see it, engage with the culture, have discussion about it. If there's things you disagree with, use it as a platform to have that conversation. But don't shy away, engage with the culture and use it as an opportunity.
The film Captive opened in theaters this weekend. It's filled with drama, hence its PG-13 rating, and may not be for everyone, but its story is a powerful one. We've been talking with the movie's producer, Terry Botwick. For more about today's topic and guest, please visit our website, firstpersoninterview.com. Once again, that's firstpersoninterview.com. Next week, we'll talk with a young man who was arrested in Chicago and spent time in the Cook County Jail, but whose life was turned around by the love of Christ and now returns to the jail as a gospel chaplain. Corey Buchanan will be with us next time. Don't forget that our new first-person smartphone app is now available on both the iPhone and Android platforms, making it easier than ever to listen to this program. And anytime you'd like to leave a comment, use our Facebook page, facebook.com/firstpersoninterview. facebook.com/firstpersoninterview. Now, with thanks to my friend and producer Joe Carlson, I'm Wayne Shepherd. Thanks for listening to First Person.